Zohra is with us tonight. She was a former attendee of the summer break room and was able to transition into learning and development. She is now an instructional designer for Southwest Airlines and the president of ATD's Fort Worth chapter. So we're going to give her the floor. Like I said, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. And Zohra, you can take it away.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining tonight. I think Jared and I were talking about this last time that we met. I guess it's been 2 years since the transition. So I remember it. Congratulations, you're taking the first step. You're doing this. My journey to L&D was a little all over the place and how I ended up here. So I'll walk you through it, but I don't want this to be a here is the life of Zohra Samji and her world to L&D. But I want to give you guys the tools that kind of have helped me. And I'm going to be focusing more so on the networking and the professional organizations part, but happy to answer any other questions that you guys have as part of my transition as well. So fun fact, I was a pre-law major. Um, Graduated with it. I was psychology, did all that fun stuff, then went into photography. If you graduated out of the state of Texas or Iowa, and if it was a high school graduation or a college graduation, I was the person over there standing on the stool trying to make sure that I didn't fall down, trying to take your picture. I was the one taking your orders. I was the one editing those pictures. I was a manager at that photography firm there. And that kind of sparked back to one of my loves of graphic design. Tonight I did cheat and I used Canva because sometimes you have to, and that's okay. But I love doing graphic design. So a lot of my work that you'll see, even like in my portfolio or you'll see in my professional work, is that I will go out and create graphics in Illustrator because that is my original background. So I have a certification in that from my undergraduate university as well. All of that to say, I decided to become a math teacher. I taught everything from pre-algebra to AP calculus. I did it all. And I loved it. I miss my kids. I'm going to one of their weddings in a month, which is still something I'm getting adjusted to. Some of them have kids now. But it's part of it. I even coached cheer for about 2 fun years. So that was a lot of fun project management, we'll call it. Um, and then I became an instructional designer. And the real story about that we're going to dig into is from me being a math teacher to an instructional designer, because that's what we're all here for. The way I found out that instructional design was even a field was my district, one of my last districts, they actually had a digital learning conference that they held over the summer. And somebody from a local university was there advertising their master's in instructional design. And I said, this is the thing. Why did I not know about this? It was a new name for it. It was something I had done as an undergrad. I was called a faculty multimedia consultant. This was about 15, 20 years ago. Okay, we're going to leave the number kind of indescript there. Um, and so it was great. I went and pursued a master's in instructional design. I went to UNT, which is the University of North Texas, because they had an online only program. That was great. I was still doing full-time teaching, and this tiny little thing called the COVID pandemic was happening at the same time. So it was great timing for me. And while I was doing my master's in instructional design, I was learning about Articulate. I was learning about all the different resources that you have available as an instructional designer, and also kind of doing that code switch that we have, right? Students were no longer, they weren't students anymore, they were learners. I wasn't a teacher, I was an instructor or a facilitator. And just those tiny nuances kind of happen, and I kind of got the vibe of corporate speak. Um, but part of it came from just upscaling as well. This was me going on LinkedIn learning more about, hey, how can I take my designs from Adobe and drop them back in to PowerPoint or drop them into Google Slides? Hey, Adobe's changed a lot in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. How do I keep up with it? Let me take some stuff. They have a lot of free options. So I went back and I upskilled. There's stuff on my portfolio from Canva itself, but it was all about how did I use that tool so that was more effective for the learner. And that's really what you want to get across when you're presenting your work. Have you thought about the learner? Have you made sure you know how a learner is going to think and that it's beneficial for the learner? And that's easy for us coming from the teaching background. And that was the part that I had to push when I was networking. A lot of my networking happened probably mid-May because there was an incident at the school. There was a fire alarm during the AP Calculus test that year. It was great. I was going to tell my students after they took their AP test I was leaving because I didn't want it to affect them. I had them since they were freshmen, so I wanted to not impact it. That didn't work out. Life has its own way, so I told them, and I started networking. I actually joined a local ATD chapter because a transition teacher who I had worked with at a different campus was in that chapter, which I am now president-elect, so that's fun. But that also meant going through a lot of online groups. I found out about the GLDC through the ATD group, but there are also a lot of online groups that are on there. And I'm going to try to see if I can drop these in. You're in a lot of these groups already, right? You know about the GLDC, maybe you saw Jared's event, maybe you saw my post, maybe you're part of the GLDC, which is great. You've already taken one of those steps. Join one of the LinkedIn groups, join the Facebook group. That way you can be part of the many, soon to be. But join the groups that are geared at teachers in transition because you want somebody to keep you accountable. There were a lot of teachers that I kept talking to, and we went along the journey together, be like, hey, is this what you're experiencing? Is this what you're experiencing? We shared resources. How I found out about Erin Lewber. And I think we talked about her last time. That's how my resume started getting hits. There are some other groups that you also want to join. Join the ones that you are intending to go into. So I'm dropping some groups here in the chat right now. The first one was a group that I used to be in. I think the next two are a little bit newer, but I've only joined them because of people that I trust that are in there. The other one, so you've got the instructional design and the user experience one. The instructional design one, you'll get a lot of fun and free webinars that are great. You get to keep upskilling for free 99, the best price ever. When you are reaching out and joining these LinkedIn groups, we're going to talk a little bit more about informational interviews, but you really want to make sure you're not sticking with just your teacher group. You're all going through the same thing, so your feed's going to look like the same thing. If you join people that are already in that field that have gone through that transition, your feed itself will start to shift because that's where you want to be. It's kind of that whole adage of, dress for the job you want, not the one you have. Well, you got to dress your LinkedIn for the job you want, not the one you have. And this is my shameless plug right here. Jared, thank you for letting me do this. Join your local ATD chapter. Truly, that's how I was able to move forward. And if you want to get to know her, Lara Ascona, she's one of our past presidents. She's a former teacher as well. She's in change management currently, but she is one of the reasons why I was able to utilize LinkedIn and learn about our ATD group so that I could keep moving forward. When you're attending in-person events or virtual events, get your name out there. Think about that 30-second elevator spiel that you have. So that way you have an introduction. And it's not necessarily you're doing it so that you can get a job now. It's so that you can establish the relationships so that they continue to stay with you. Our current president now, she actually helped my wedding. She was part of it. She helped manage it. I gave her everything, but she just had to manage my crazy family. But I only met her because we set up that relationship a few years back. She helped and offered to look over my resume. She's a hiring manager. This is what she does. She offered it because we had a good connection. We built that rapport and that relationship. If you have the capacity, volunteer. You get your name out. That's kind of how I got further into the depths of ATD Fort Worth. I volunteered for our conference. Started off with just doing some communication and running a online social, and we know where we are now. Make sure you join the other professional groups as well. So you've got the GLDC. There are a couple ones that kind of like a learning guild, and ATD, you've got, ooh, I think, is that Rachel? I've got an answer for you soon. Um, Look for some in-person networking events as well. I'm dropping one that's local to us. There are a couple of different ones in the area. I'm based out of the DFW Metroplex in North Texas. Um, but it really just kind of depends on where your area is. Look for places that offer this. This networking event, the South Lake Focus Group, I know they do offer some online options. Go out there, connect with people. Everybody out there is looking for a job together, and you're all looking for it in different fields. So it might be, hey, I know so and so from this networking event. Let me bring them back because they would be great to bring to onto this team as well. All right. There we go. All right. When you connect with somebody, whether it be on LinkedIn, and whenever you are connecting with them on person, we'll talk about this a little bit more on that next slide, and I'll answer that question in the chat then. Um, Set up time for them. Get to know these people, do informational interviews. I met with a couple of different instructional designers that had gone through the teacher transition as well prior to 2020, talked to them. They reached out, they looked over my resume, even people that I'd gone to college with that are now in similar fields or companies that were hiring. I kind of reconnected with them, got to know them, and it's been great because we still talk. You want to keep those relationships up. Maybe your neighbor is working for the same company and you don't know about it. So talk to the people that are in your life. And whenever you do it, and I'm gonna drop a picture here of like what my actual signature looks like on my email. You get a picture of me so you know what I look like when you see me. It's how whenever I meet somebody for coffee in real life, sometimes that does happen. Um, you know what I look like. I might not know what you look like, but you know what I look like. I have a link to my portfolio. I have a link to my LinkedIn. That calendar event is a Calendly. You can definitely set up a free account. That's what I have. If anybody reaches out for an informational interview with me, I need to set some time up. I direct them to my Calendly. I keep it up to date. I make life easy for them. Find something that works for both you and I. I have a YouTube channel from way back when I was a math teacher. So if you really want to watch Algebra 1 and geometry videos, they are there. Um, but I keep that on my signature because it shows that I can do video development. It shows that I can put all of that work out there. And then I have my cell phone number. Sorry, guys, I did black that out for you guys. Um, you guys are more than welcome to connect with me. I'll give you that information later. In terms of when you're meeting somebody virtually, you want to make sure that you're sending out a message, or if you're in any of these online groups and you sit in a webinar like this, you want to introduce yourself and maybe you put down your name, what job you're looking for. So you are an instructional designer. That's what I put down. And I say, would love to connect with everyone. And I drop a clean link to my LinkedIn, which doesn't do that typically because I'm not presenting when I do that. There we go. So something like that in the chat so everybody can kind of get connected with you and you can build those relationships. Once you guys connect, make sure to drop a message to the other person so you remember how you know that person as well. And that way it reminds them where they met you. So if they're ever looking back, how do I know this person? This is how. Keep a header image on your LinkedIn. If you look on my LinkedIn, it's nothing crazy. I like the color blue. My wedding was blue. I had blue. That's all it was. In terms of the sizes, this is what I did. I just used Canva, dropped it in, didn't want anything crazy. I just wanted some stock images, put my name on the right side because you don't want any important information on the left side because your actual profile picture will cover that part sometimes. So you have to be kind of judicious about how you use that space. And the thing is about all of it, 60 to 95, 85% of jobs are found through networking. And then I think the other number that they had was about 27% was done through referrals. All the numbers are a little up in the air because nobody will ever truly know how you actually got that job sometimes because they won't report it. But that's why it's good to also have those warm intros. If you know somebody that knows somebody, hey, Jared, I see that you work at Mayo and I see there is an opening and you know the hiring manager. Do you mind connecting us? Sending out that LinkedIn message so that they can really connect that and give you that personal, have you met me? I will go ahead and show this really quickly to you guys so you can see how that goes. And hopefully you will not have a forbidden 403 anymore, which I haven't had. But to answer, is it McPherson, your question, I did go ahead and do business cards. And so here we go, guys. We're back. And I'm just going to show you the actual designs themselves. Here's what my newer business card look like. I have my phone number. It's not blacked out anymore. It's okay, guys. It's fine. This is my email, my portfolio, and how to contact me on LinkedIn. And on the back, I had QR codes. Make it easy. Nobody's going to type all of that out. When I get something written down, it's a long link. I'm not going to do it. We have the technology. We should do it. If you use the Canva QR code, it does not expire. It stays consistent, and there are a lot of different QR code places online that what will end up happening is that when you do make a QR code, it'll expire in like 30 days, 60 days, and then you have to pay to keep watching it. Use the one for Canva, use your free account. It's great. We're gonna retry this. Woohoo. It's fine. You guys know what they look like. And then something that I did recently, and this was something that I kept on my phone right here. Whenever I was meeting in person, I just popped this out. And this was at our international conference that I did this. They knew who I was, they connected me with me right away. And I don't know, I think I had like 20 connections that I was meeting every single day at least. And we were just able to get that going because we made it easy for them. So it's kind of a brief overview of all of the networking that you have when you're working with your informational interviews and you're meeting people after this and you're reaching out to them. Think about the questions that you want to have. What, made that person choose that company? I'm trying to think. What do you enjoy about instructional design? How do you feel about this? Get their opinion on how things are going. And I think we are okay with questions at this time because I've been talking for a bit, y'all. I'm sorry. But I want to give you guys the option to get connected, but B, also ask whatever questions you all have of me. And we can have y'all come off of mute or you guys can type it in the chat.
While they're thinking, you mentioned that you did graduate school. Do you think that experience helped you more than upskilling? Would you recommend that for people who are looking to transition in?
Uh, it depends. I needed that structure. So I needed the structure of grad school, whereas I have uh, some colleagues that have done the full teacher transition as well. They didn't do any of that. They just did a certification and called it a day. So do kind of what works best for you, but show that you are upskilling. That's very sweet, Kathy.
I'll pop out a question. Hey,
Yeah.
everyone.
Hey, Amy.
Hey, thank you so much. It's really nice to be here and hear a little of your story. I
Yeah.
am one of probably many thousand transitioning teachers. I'm a community college English as a foreign language instructor and did some upskilling through a formal program. And I'm in the midst of a job search. And I guess I would love if you could speak for a moment to what your path was like going from, you've got your degree, you've made your connections, and you've started
Hmm.
interviewing. How long did it take to get your first role? Was it a contract role? Was it where you are now? Just a little bit
Yeah.
about that would be super helpful. And you might already see I've connected with you already on LinkedIn. Thank you
Love
so
it.
much.
I put everything on Do Not Disturb. But
Cool.
I will respond to all of y'all soon. And I'm actually going to stop sharing if that's okay.
Thanks.
And in terms of your question, let's see. Again, it was a little up and down, kind of like that road symbol, because I was planning our engagement in between. So I got all of my work together and did everything up through the end of June. Took a break because that's not something we do as teachers. We're used to going and going and going. And I actually stopped, slowed down. I started therapy because I knew I would need it through all of this. Um, and I took a break, a mental break, and I started again in August. Was not getting hits based upon the resumes that I had put together from some people that had kind of given me recommendations, was still doing networking, was attending these different webinars, picking up different things. And you're going to hear advice from a million different people. Just as many transitioning teachers as there are, that's how many people are out there trying to give you information. At the end of the day, you're going to also have to filter what information that you want to apply to you and what works best for you. Um, and I did that. I tried to hire somebody for a resume that didn't work out. It was a sales pitch. We've been there. I think we talked about that last time. They refunded me the money, and then I got referred to, hey, why don't you check out Erin Lewber? She's got a free resume template. And I said, I don't know. I've already been burned. I went through her template. I started using that resume in at the end of August, early September, like right after Labor Day. I had a job offer by the end of the month. Yes. But I did a lot of work leading up to that time, right? Like I worked on my portfolio and I had a lot of those items because I'd worked on it throughout my grad program. But I worked on that portfolio. I'd already gotten some of that taken care of. Um, it took me a month. I landed at a startup, a travel expense management startup. I was one of three instructional designers there. Um, I ended up having to mentor one of the other IDs there because apparently I was able to teach better. That's what we've been doing for the last, I don't know, decades. Um, our department was sadly laid off a year later, simply because they thought that instructional design didn't need instructional designers. And so my manager is still there and he is trying to get an instructional designer role back so that his facilitators can stop creating and being the ones facilitating because they don't get paid enough to do that and they don't have the time to do it. And then I was recruited for my current role and I had an offer, gosh, within a month, less than a month. I turned on my open to work on the back end and I was updating my LinkedIn. Um, and I think I'm going to say something a little. So, Jared, cut it out if we need to. But there's this whole controversial thing about the open to work banner. Have you guys heard about that? Like green banner, no green banner? They had released that about 2 or 3 years ago before the whole thing kind of starting hitting the news. And they had already stated if you don't turn on the green banner, which last time I did, If you don't turn on the green banner, you tend to rank higher on the recruiter side. And each time you update your LinkedIn profile while you're doing it, you get bumped just a little bit more. So I tried it out this time. I don't know necessarily how well it works. It worked out well. I had a lot of recruiters reaching out to me when I had it up on the back end. Um, and I was editing my profile throughout I turned it on and then I was editing my profile because I had to update my resume too. And I was getting hits. And so, yeah, I had about 4 or 5 different offers that I was working with, but I wanted to be at the company that I am at now. And I said, I'm sorry, guys, and I have to be here. This is where my heart is calling. No pun intended. So, um, yeah. And then I started early December. It was just then the paperwork. Until I got my offer, until I honestly started, I was still interviewing though. Job offers can get pulled back, positions can get closed. That happened in the middle of one of my interviews. I said, hey, so this position's no longer a thing. We'll get back to you. Keep your options open, keep going. Um, I'm an anxious person. So I said, okay, I know I'm going into the office on this first day. This is my orientation. I'm going to recheck my offers. I think it was like at the end of the week or whatever. I said, hey, I've made a call. So thank you for your time. And I'm so sorry I answered so many things. Um, but one of the other platforms that I would utilize while I'm here, I do not get paid by them. I just love their product a lot, is Teal, Teal, the job tracker. Great. As you're keeping up with your interview, so that way you can put your notes in there. And they do templates in there. So I didn't have to think about a thank you template. I just copied, pasted, tweaked, called it a day.
Real quick, just to jump in, when you mentioned the green banner, and this is more for everybody else, not you, Zohra, but do y'all
Yes.
understand what she means when she says on the back end she's turning the open to work on, or are you not familiar with that? Okay, cricket. So front end is the banner. Everybody can see it, including your boss and where you currently work. Like it's open to the public. The back end is a setting where you can show up as open to work to recruiters and hiring managers and people who pay for that version of LinkedIn, but no one else can see it. So if you had open to work on the front end, I would see it. If it's just the back end, then I don't. Thank you, Zohra.
Right here.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you don't want your job search public, but you do want recruiters to know that you're looking for a job, go to where Zohra is right now and adjust that setting. There is some benefit, I think, to having the banner.
Agreed.
At my last job, there was a external project that I thought we were going to end up sourcing about 20 people as contractors. And Alicia, no, that is a free feature, I believe. But what I was doing when I was thinking that was going to happen was going through my connections and seeing who had that green banner up. So I knew, all right, these people are looking for work. So it can help you in situations where non-recruiters are trying to find some extra people for a temporary contract gig. But for the most part, if you want a private job search, just do the back end. And I'll second what Zohra said about Teal. That's what I used on my most recent job search. It's wonderful. They have a free version. They have a paid version that gives you a lot more templates and helps you customize your resume, but the free version's great. I didn't pay for my account. Any other questions?
Let's see. I think Mariana, you brought up an interesting point. Like it gets tricky if sometimes you are working with an employer that does have it open on the back end. Um, I found my first job through Indeed. And then there are a couple of different platforms that you can use, those job search sites, go through them. I think there was one, and Jared, you might remember this was started up by, I think, a fellow former teacher. It's like ed tech jobs or remote only jobs aimed at transitioning teachers.
Ed tech. There is a guy named Jeff Patterson. He's the CEO
Yeah.
of Gaggle. Every year he holds a job fair, but it's every field. There's a few L&D positions that go there to try and hire people, but it's very, very stiff competition because there's thousands of teachers trying to get in there and talk to the recruiters, and the tables are like 10 people. So he's a good person to follow. He posts lists like every day, but I don't think that's who you're talking about.
I don't remember who they are right now. But they post remote jobs only. They don't necessarily have a relationship. I think Jeff sometimes will post who you can kind of contact and talk to as well. Having that personal connection always helps. My hiring manager from my last company, we were laid off from, he left the company as well. I knew him, so I was able to get kind of a leg up on an interview process because I know him. He knows my work already. Um, so kind of getting to know people and showcasing them your work will help too.
Yes, LinkedIn Learning, you often can get through your public library. I don't think you get the certificate when you do that. Like, it goes through your library card and it's not necessarily connected to your account. At least that's the way it was before. But I think I mentioned this last week. I don't think companies really care too much about the certificate themselves. They care about the skill. And if you can talk about what you learned in the course, whether you have the certificate or not, that's so much better.
And I'm here to answer any questions. Oh, Alicia, do you have your hand up? Sorry.
Yeah, I did.
Hey.
I just sort of pop up. I do have a question for you, but I did want to mention something about the LinkedIn Learning. So my local library did not have LinkedIn Learning, but I was able to join a library. So I live in Southern New Jersey, but I joined the Fairfax County Library in Virginia. And I paid it was like about $25 for a yearly membership, and they have like LinkedIn Learning. So that was a way that I could access LinkedIn Learning for $25 for a year and not $30 a month. So if anybody's looking and your local library doesn't have it, highly recommend using Fairfax County Library in Virginia. You'll be able to get it there.
That's a nice hack.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I've lived abroad before, and I remember that like you could use other libraries if you paid. There's some out there, not all of them, but there are some out there. So Fairfax County is one of them.
Nice. And I know like what I did, because I couldn't pay for premium, they kept giving me the premium trial option. I used that. And I used every ounce of that, every drop of it. And then I ended the trial, and I think for a little bit, they're like, oh, we'll come back after like it was like 6 months or whatever, something like that. And in a year I had gotten laid off. So I was like, it's trial time again. Use the trials. Free 99 is awesome. And 25 for the whole year is even better, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And
yeah, and I've been able to get like all the certificates and stuff every time I complete something. I've been able to link it to my profile.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then could I ask, I was wondering about how your background in graphic design has helped you in this journey, and if you have any resources for beginning designers in that in that area.
And I'm trying to think. I will find you some.
Okay.
But Adobe has a lot of free options. If you have the platform, they do offer a lot. This is what I do. I follow some on Instagram and TikTok, and
Yeah.
they're great. In terms of like my graphic design coming to light, and helping me, it's been great because I can really make things look great in terms of its presentation as well. So it looks clean, it looks fresh. Something that I've done for both of the companies I've been with now has been refresh their branding. My last company went through a full rebrand, and so I was able to create their actual template decks. The current company I am with, I made an entire template deck for our training team. And I'm able to use those tools because beforehand, and it wasn't the most exciting, and it doesn't necessarily need to be exciting, but it needs to look good. If you're serving a plate of food, yes, it needs to be good for you, but it also needs to look good and you want it to be appetizing. Um, Illustrator is something that would be great because you can make your own shapes. Um, and that way you can actually import them into PowerPoint. So that's the SVG file format. And then you can use those same things. These are like the editable shapes where you can just change the color to whatever you want. You have to export them. I think it's as a WMF for Google Slides. I can't remember. But you export them as that, and then you open it up as a Google drawing and copy and paste it into your deck. So if you've ever used a slide template from like Slides Mania, they have all those cute little icons that you can change the colors. That's how they do it. Icon Master, I think, is another one. I'll look for that link and I can shoot it over to Jared. They'll have icons that you can kind of pull, so that way you can recreate some stuff for you. My graphic design part helped because in one of the learning series that we had, it was a continuing education. It was for our customer service agents. We were working on communication and we called it power skills. Pretty much customer service 101. Here's your retail voice. Here's how we shouldn't be on the phone. Here's how you should be. So I came up with a superhero themed in our company's brand colors at the time. And that superhero, because of power skills, followed them throughout each of the e-learnings as well as the ILTs, the virtual instructor-led trainings that we had. And they recognized him. They started using him on Slack as like an emoji for things. So it's great to have that impact as well. Did I answer your question, Alicia?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's definitely great to start with. I mean, there's so many products out there. I know Canva has a lot of, I mean, Canva's got templates and stuff. That's not like, yeah, you do want to be kind of next level from that, but
Yes.
to hear that Adobe has a lot of tutorials and start with Illustrator is, I've used Photoshop before, but I mean, that was like when I was an undergrad. I have a bachelor's in fine arts, but like, I mean, it was so long ago.
It's very different.
Yeah. I just feel very overwhelmed with everything that's out there, like Illustrator, InDesign. Like there's so much now.
Yes.
So it's good to hear to start with Illustrator. I was wondering too, though, if I could follow up with a question.
Yeah.
What do you feel though in this with the rise of AI? Like for example, so I'm in a graduate certificate program, and I just took a class I just finished, and it was designing e-learning using a tool. So I used Storyline, and I thought about branding and stuff, as basic as I could, as my skills have. But I like created this universe. I had a background of university, and I had some colors, and then I was like, I could really use a logo. I'm not going to make a logo. Like I can't do that. But then I just went to like the Microsoft AI, and I was like, can you make a university logo with the letter B and these colors? And it did. And I was like, where do you feel that this is leading for? I mean, there's definitely principles of graphic design, but where do you feel this is leading towards? Like you're talking about like all these icons and things that you can actually, you can make them, or you can just grab them.
You can just grab them. And one thing that I'll add on later is that at the end of the day, that property, if it's created by generative AI, is nobody's intellectual property.
Yeah.
So that creates some copyright issues. So whatever company you're working with, for example, I'd be like,
that's true.
How's that privacy policy work? Things like that.
That's
There's
true.
an update to Adobe's terms and services. I think it was today, or it was this week. You should go and check yourself because they want full access to all of your work in order to create their generative AI stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And it's like 3 steps that you need to do to just kind of unhook from all of that. But a lot of corporations use Adobe. Yes, same with Meta. You just uncheck because you put in a lot of work to create those things. Um, I've used generative AI for something. There was one where I needed an airport lobby, and Adobe gave me something that, for the most part, worked. Great, awesome. Sometimes it's not the best, and I know what my brain wants, and you can tell the difference almost instantaneously. Um, so it shows, and having those skills about, and I'm going to sound like a math teacher again. I'm so sorry, guys. The problem solving skills of figuring out how to fix your shape on Illustrator, how to fix the pathfinder of, oh, is it intersecting correctly? Am I making the right shape this way? How do I move it? That part of your brain is what works better, and it'll help you as a creator and a developer more than the AI part will.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but yeah, if you guys are using Adobe, go and check. Um, I think there are some free options as well. You've got CoreDraw. I don't know if that's still a thing. I'm assuming it is. But there are some open resource platforms. Figma is coming up. That's Figma. Affinity is a free one. Um, Canva, you can use that as well. Um, it'll work. Photoshop, not Photoshop, sorry, PowerPoint. You can create new shapes by overlapping different, like a square and a circle, and make it all one big shape, change it into a frame, and import that into Canva and make your own personal frame. Did you work around it and did you make your own shape? Yes, you did. And your PowerPoint will run a whole lot faster if you make it actually on PowerPoint. But it's okay. I like my things to look pretty, so I do it anyways.
And to jump in, I do think that with graphic design, a big thing is just knowing what looks good.
Mhm.
And I do think like even Affinity and Photoshop, they have all the AI features built in. So even if you're not necessarily 100% skilled, it's not as difficult to make things now as it used to be. So
Agreed.
just knowing what looks good. And one book that was really popular when I was making my transition, I haven't heard as much about it lately, but is the Non-Designer's Design book by Robin Williams. She talks about
Mhm.
typography, basic graphic design skills. So if you're familiarizing yourself with that, then it's universal and it applies to every tool instead of just
Yes.
one thing that you're learning now that could change their terms and make you panic next week. And the link for that is in the chat.
Yeah. That's a good book. Thank you for pointing that out. Like your color theory, that will help great. I think I had one person say, hey, let's put white on yellow. And I said, no, no, we're not doing these things. Let's just put a shadow and do all of the, no. You can pull that in and pull on your expertise. It gives you a little bit of oomph behind you too.
So I guess one other question I have about kind of going back to networking when you're talking about ATD. I know that your chapter does a lot of virtual
Mhm.
events. The chapter nearest me is pretty much in person only, and there's still like 3 hours a drive. So that's not something I'm interested in doing. Is there a benefit to doing a local chapter that is away from you if they're doing more like online things, or is that kind of a taboo of I live in North Carolina, but I'm joining one in Texas or in Seattle, or
Join our
doesn't matter?
Um, so it's kind of up to you, right? Um, Sometimes maybe you just go for an event instead of becoming part of the chapter and going to some of their larger social events that they have for networking. 3 hours that's a long weekend. That's a trip that you make out of it. Um, and that's kind of the beauty of, I'm so sorry, shameless plug. We are a hybrid chapter. We're one of the few that have remained hybrid since COVID. for this exact reason. At one point, we had members all the way from Australia joining us because they don't have an ATD chapter in Australia. And part of the benefits of having ATD, yes, you can network with the people that are there, but you can continue to upskill. And a lot of the chapters, especially the ones that are doing the virtual offerings, if you've got one nearby, their job seeker rate is $50 for the year. And so, but it takes care of a lot. Some of them have a couple of different, partnerships that they have set up, so you can meet a couple more people, or you can get access to a couple of different platforms. But look for somewhere that works best for you. Join the free ones too. Join the Learning Guild because they have a group on LinkedIn. You're already in the GLDC. Get connected on there. I think I got set up with a mentor through one of those summer break rooms. I met somebody, the GLDC does Wednesday networking at 11 Central Time.
11 Central, 12 Eastern. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
But go to those events. It's fun. You don't get to go as often because I have a work meeting that is always at that time. But it's fun to go. They have trivia at the end, and Jared can talk a little bit more about this, but you guys do breakout rooms beforehand as well. Yeah. And that's the thing, like even with the South Lake focus group, yes, we're based out of North Texas, but you can meet people virtually now and you can meet them all over. And if a company is willing to, they will either be hybrid or remote. If they see the worth in you, they will try to make it happen. At one point, when I was with my last company, we were going to have to move. My husband was going to get relocated for his job, and I would be the only one that would be leaving that area from our LD team. They got approval from the managers, things like that, said if she has to move, we will support her remotely. But whenever anybody's in office, she has to come in. If your work is there, your work will always speak for itself, and they will make those accommodations for you. So try. And a lot of the positions right now, they're either hybrid or in person. So still getting the opportunity in with the remote roles helps a lot.
I'm going to put these links back in the chat. If you were trying to save all the links, this is most of them, of the groups that Zohra mentioned earlier, as well as GLDC, that Facebook group that I mentioned. EDU Fellowship is an interesting one. It is, if nobody else has ever been here, I've seen a few people from GLDC show up, but they meet like once a month for a speed mixer. And I mean, it's fast. You go into a breakout room with one other person, maybe two, for a couple of minutes, you chat, then you go back to a main room. It's like speed dating, but for networking. That and then GLDC's Wednesday meetups are really great for meeting people. And then if you can, taking those conversations outside of that group to get to know them better, because you're not guaranteed to be with the same person any given week at GLDC or in the Edu Mixer. So just chatting on LinkedIn outside of that is great. Articulate, the community there is wonderful, especially if you're trying to learn storyline. They have the weekly challenges. Tim Slade's group, I didn't put that one in there, but his e-learning community has monthly challenges where he gives you design prompts for storyline builds or builds that you can make in other course authoring tools. There's a lot of great stuff out there. I think we have time for like one or two more questions if anybody wants to jump back in.
I'll do a quick follow-up. I'm real curious. Thanks so much to Jared, Zohra, about what are the tools that you use the most at your current position?
Rise in PowerPoint.
So no storyline?
I haven't yet. So my current responsibility is primarily onboarding for our technology support. And we are reworking the entire curriculum, so I always have something to do. In my last company, we didn't use Storyline as much because we were a startup. I've had things that were about to get published on Rise, and I would get a notification, hey, this entire policy has now changed. I'm like, startups move fast. Startups move probably the speed of how fast some of us were teaching and having to kind of shift with things. Whereas some of the more established companies, I feel like I have breathing room now. I don't know if that's kind of a universal thing, but we'll go for it. We do have some storyline projects, but it's a team of us that are working on it. So we've got different people working on different things of that.
Thanks.
Yeah. And part of kind of that background, Amy, is that a lot of our learning has become, it has to be instructor led. Our learners are requesting more of it over the e-learning. So we're trying to find that good balance for them. And so that's going to be, we're doing PowerPoint or we're doing Google Slides and we're pushing that out there. Yeah. But some of that stuff also, and I want to add to this, is you don't have to make it just that. Some of the things that we used to use as teachers, an Excel spreadsheet to create an activity, do it. Something short, sweet, cool. Send them on a scavenger hunt. We used to do that a lot. Go send them on a scavenger hunt that lets them explore the items that they need and have them come back and discuss. Because a lot of that component of that learning is kind of getting lost in the shift between e-learning and virtual ILTs or whatnot. And so having that feedback, if you've got cohort systems set up, it's great and you can utilize those.
Thank you very much, Zohra, for coming and sharing about your experience and about networking and professional works.